Hey everybody, Josh Sigurdson of World Alternative Media here, and we're joined by Jason Nelson, former Special Operations. He's a Marine. He's, of course, a former congressional candidate, and he is the co-founder of Prepper Beef. And we have a link in the description, by the way, for whambeef.com, which I urge people to check out. I'll mention it more in a moment, but there's a lot to go into right now in the world. We are facing historic shortages across the board, the likes of which we have not seen before. We are dealing with the gridlock over climate restrictions. We're dealing with the gridlock over the bird flu hoax, and I'm going to call it a hoax, of course. We are dealing with war. All these things affect the supply chain. And of course, on top of that, we have a trade war. And on top of that, we have inflation. We're dealing with a lot all coming to fruition at the exact same time, and it's hurting a lot of people. Right now, there are farmers asking for bailouts. There's a lot of experts saying that we could see a massive panic buying type situation within the next couple months. And all the while, I have video that I'm putting on the screen here of the gridlock around Los Angeles and places like in China. There is a lot to go into here. And on top of that, we have these blackouts in places like Spain and Portugal over this net zero agenda. Solar failures trigger historic blackout, natural gas saves Iberian grid amid net zero backlash. Imagine that. Well, of course, we all know where this is going. Of course, we are facing down the threat of digital IDs, of food rations in the future, and there are ways to avoid that. So before I go to Jason Nelson, I want to mention something that I think is incredibly imperative for people out there watching to get on board with. We have WAMBEEF.com linked in the description. If you go over there, you'll get 10 plus year shelf life freeze-dried steak. There's freeze-dried chicken and freeze-dried ground beef available as well. And of course, there you can get, it's 12 servings per bag. You can get this stuff 20% off if you use code WAMBEEF, WAMBEEF, all one word. This is a great opportunity for people to actually stock up and not succumb to that which is to come, which I really truly believe one way or another, we are facing down the potential of food rations in the future. There you can find guaranteed no mRNA. There's no mRNA in this meat. By the way, they're finding traces of this in grocery stores. They're saying they're not doing this, but there is evidence of this. This is an option for you guys to get on board with 100% natural, all-American beef. So I'm excited to promote that to you guys today. We have an elephant in the room as well that we're going to get into later on in the video with Jason, because of course, many of you know we had back and forth issue, not directly with Jason, but with someone else previously and over at the company, and I've done a video on it before. We're gonna roll that back, and I'm really excited to be joined by you today, Jason. Can you let people know what got you into this business of getting people things like freeze-dried beef, freeze-dried chicken, getting that and making that available to people, and also the non-mRNA brand on it, which is very important due to a lot of people being concerned over that?
Well, gosh, Josh, I think that there's a lot of things to address there, and we could do it very quickly. I left special operations. I left the Army, retired. I retired specifically because I had to avoid the mandatory jab. I actually retired, ended my terminal leave the day before the jab was mandatory, specifically because I wasn't going to let that junk get in my body. I ran for Congress, as you're well aware, and at that time, genuinely didn't think I was going to win, obviously, just coming back from having served 20 years in the military. But I did go back and get an opportunity to get to know my community, to understand the resources here, and understand the needs as far as employment and other things like that. So I got a real survey, lay of the land, if you will, of my district. And that led to my next step, which was, okay, it's time to start a small business. That's what Americans are supposed to do. We're supposed to produce. And I needed to find a need somewhere where I knew that there was going to be a demand for a product, but more importantly, something that I could believe in. I don't want to go sell air conditioning parts. I mean, I wasn't trying to just start a business. I wanted to do something that I could believe in. And, my job in the military was to solve problems in the most extreme situations, to come up with measurable solutions that you could implement using very minimal resources, solving complex problems with a very, just with nearly anything, nothing, if you will. And that points us to where we are now. Josh, you've pointed out all of these issues that are happening around the world. These same things were happening 3 years ago when we started the company, when I retired. It was that 4 years ago now, I apologize. It was that, we have global supply chain issues. We saw that during COVID. The forced shutdown, the COVID hoax led to them shutting down all sorts of companies manufacturing. We saw the food industry take a huge hit. When I say that, I'm talking about producers. It was their ability to get labor. It was their ability to get their exports out. And then, of course, you have the Ukraine war. Ukraine war has wheat not being sent from Ukraine. You have the price of fuel and inflation, as you talked about, the net zero push, this big climate hoax, which has turned around and made it so that it's a quick segue here. We all know why we're what moves you from a third world nation into developing industrialized nation into a first world nation was the ability to move food around, was the ability to energy was a lot of what this was, our ability to store food and refrigerate it, make it last longer, so people could have healthier, well-rounded diets throughout the year, where things like animal proteins, like beef and chicken, weren't just something that farmers got to eat every day. It was something that every American could eat every day. It's what made our country so strong. And when you see that, when you can't ship things around because they've limited your ability to utilize energy, we are shutting down our own supply chains. It's kind of insane. But India, they can't even ship rice. Their number one export, it's a staple for over a third of the people in this world.
Right. Sorry to interrupt you there, Jason,
Yes.
but we saw panic buying of rice a little while ago because of this. There were people lining up in foreign stores trying to get rice for all the Indian restaurants that have popped up all over the place over the last 15, 20 years. They couldn't get the rice they needed for their food that they were selling. So it caused a huge gridlock.
Absolutely, and it's still happening right now, primarily because they can't afford to ship it. They couldn't ship it off the dock. So you're going to see this, and then of course that's going to crush the farmers next year, right? So we have very similar things. We have this gridlock going on, and what most people don't understand is we ship out about 50% of U.S. Beef is shipped overseas. Over half the beef used in the United States is foreign beef. It comes from places like China, New Zealand, Brazil, other just Mexico, actually, everywhere. So when you look at that, you think, okay, well, we don't know what's going into food. We know that we're having supply chain issues. And having come from the field that I came from in the military, I ate a lot of MREs, we'll put it that way. So I've eaten a lot of food that people say, well, this is food that'll keep you alive. And I thought, well, sure, it'll help you survive. But I've come to a point in my life where I'd like to do a little bit better than that. You know, we have our own victory garden. We have our own preserves. We can our food. I wanted to sort of thrive. I said, so why can't we get quality meat, quality protein? And that's how we sort of analyze that problem, right, Josh? And then you look and you go, well, why are they just serving sort of this, I don't know, taco flavored beef porridge? You know, what is the reason for this? And the reason why people weren't having whole cuts of beef was because it was, and I'm talking about bite-sized chunks, you know, real like meat. And why? Well, because it's hard. That's it. It's just hard. But, you know, we don't want the preservatives. We don't want the junk. I don't want the flavoring. But more importantly, I want to know where my food comes from. I wanted to be able to supply that to people and to insulate myself, my own company. I wanted to be able to insulate it from any future contrived reason, as you pointed out, with the mass slaughtering of chickens, or whether it be as they're now trying to push some sort of new disease that they're going to say the cows are going to have to be injected. Well, I want to know what's being put in those cows. I mean, I want to, that's how you do this. You sit here and you identify the ranch, and then you move right over to the processor, and then you move from the processor. And that's what we did. We established our own supply chain, and it's well insulated. It's all 100% American everything, 100% Texas beef. And when I say Texas beef, I mean beef that was born here, raised here, not beef that they swap out, not beef they ship in and then process at a USDA processor when it's been sitting, as you pointed out, offshore. Sorry, my screen's over there. Yeah. It's sitting offshore off of the port of Los Angeles because they've, you know, or Long Beach, because there's just a massive just problem right now in our supply chain. A lot of it to do with this trade war. And so I think that when you look at all of those problems, and those same problems existed, you know, 4 years ago when we started this, I knew this was all not going to get better. It's not going to get better because it's on purpose.
Yeah. Well, actually, that's something I want to get into with you, Jason, because it's clear to me that this is done by design. When you have, there's only so much we could give to those in power to say that they are just stupid and they're making all these stupid decisions. When you pile them up after a while, it's not stupidity anymore. It's obviously planned, because no one could be that stupid, because you have all of these things that are happening simultaneously. And then On top of that, obviously the trade war is exacerbating things dramatically, but we've seen these shortages coming for a while, which is why I've been promoting people to go and stock up on things that they could use in 5 years, in 7 years, or in 1 year. We don't know right now where we're at, because at the end of the day, we are seeing these shortages increase every month. We are seeing it's been happening now for about 6 or 7 years. And of course, not just with the COVID stuff, it was already happening even before that. The COVID stuff just exacerbated that dramatically. And then we also know that the people, these very nefarious people in power, when the COVID stuff happened, when all the shortages happened, then we found out that a lot of the government had facilities with food stocked up to the roof, but they just weren't giving it to people. They were basically saying there's shortages, but then they were keeping it all in facilities themselves. And there were a lot of controversies surrounding people, or these major warehouses, people were sneaking into it with video cameras. I remember back in 2020 showing toilet paper to the roof. I live in Mexico. The same toilet paper that was shipped in the United States that they said they couldn't get to US stores was in Mexico, shipped from the US. So tell me how the supply chain doesn't work to go state to state, but somehow gets to Mexico and there's no shortages.
But
So
Josh, you're bringing up a huge point here, and that is that this is on purpose. It's a control mechanism, and it's why I always wonder when people say, "Well, things are better now. Trump's in office. Things are going to be better now. I don't need to worry about a disaster striking. I don't need to worry about." Well, one, you're going to argue. What's your answer when something happens? Is it I'm going to depend on my government? I mean, that's not very independent. That doesn't sound exactly why the reason we set out to do what we're doing right now, the MAGA movement in the first place. It's not just what makes America great is the individual person being able to stand up in an emergency and be self-sufficient. But more importantly, think in terms of control. As these are contrived, they're contrived for a reason. As you pointed out, they were amassing supplies for a reason. And we all know what it was now. Looking back in hindsight, the entire intent, and it had a few state governors here in the United States not stood up and said, we're going to leave our state open. And it's crazy when you think about it. But had a few more state governors just folded and stayed folded and not listened to their constituents, we would have had a mandatory vaccine program, or you don't get food. That's what would have happened. There is no question in my mind. We can look back at the narrative. So if it happened before and we saw how the table was set and we saw how many people went to the table to go eat, what do you think is going to happen the next time any sort of contrived, who mandated, whatever, that they set forth when they purposely do everything wrong as they did during COVID? What's going to happen then? You're going to be at the mercy and the whim of somebody else's decision about whether or not you have to inject something in your body.
Well,
whether or not they just come. That's it.
Absolutely. Yeah. We have people being sent to the United Nations to represent the United Nations or the United States right now. I think the U.S. should be out of the UN, honestly. But when you look at what's happening at the UN right now, back in September, they signed the United Nations Pact for the Future, which is which is legislation, international legislation, quote unquote, which allows them to shut down your bank account if you say negative things about the government or the narrative under emergency orders. They can force carbon credits on you and allow and allocate what food you are allowed to be rationed. That is 193 countries signed on to that in September, including the United States. I mean, across the board, regardless of who the president is, it's crazy to not as an individual actually stock up and prepare. And one of the things that a lot of people are concerned about is this digital system, digital IDs, that kind of stuff that I believe is very pertinent because it's growing by leaps and bounds yearly. And of course, there are digital IDs that are being pushed forward, both in the United States, Canada, the UK, elsewhere. In the European Union, they're releasing their CBDC by October this year. So I think it's very important that we look at where they can trap us when there's a shortage and what they can force us to eat. Your meat says non-mRNA. So a lot of people laugh at the idea of mRNA being in the food supply already, but there have been traces done in studies. They've shown traces of mRNA in the meat supply in local grocery stores, which should concern a lot of people. Is there a conspiracy that perhaps they're putting that in the food supply? We don't know. If we're finding traces of it, there's obviously something going on. We know pigs get injected regularly with mRNA going back to 2018, and now they're calling for bird flu mRNA injections in a lot of the cows and chickens. So there's a big reason to be concerned about that, which is why I wanted to ask you about this. I think it's very interesting. On the website, it says non-mRNA. Having that label is, I think, very important to a lot of people. Can you go into why you put that up there?
Oh, so what you're seeing there is a commitment. And you're seeing a commitment to stay away from these unproven technologies. Well, they're proven to be to make people sick, right? And I think the larger thing that you're pointing out, Josh, and it's very important that people recognize this. People say, "Well, there's no proof they're doing this," and my argument to them is, where is the law that says they have to tell you?
Yeah.
Or have they gone out of their way to write laws or to avoid writing laws to protect consumers from lab-grown meat, from meat that's been experimented upon, from meat that has mRNA vaccines? But they don't require them to label meat in any such way. Matter of fact, they've gone the opposite. They've worked very hard to disguise this. Why would they work so hard to hide something from you about the contents of your food? These are the same people that argue that you should be eating organic, for example, while Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation turns around and covers organic fruit and stuff that makes you sick. I mean, they're very confusing messaging. We wanted to be very clear. We think that the mRNA vaccines are poison, and there will never, ever be a cow that comes across our processor that has had anything to do with mRNA vaccines.
That's really good to hear. And okay, so there are the risks surrounding emergency orders going forward, digital IDs, all that. What do you think about the idea of a future where it's like Logan's Run, everyone gets a food allocated to them based on their social credit score, based on digital ID? It sounds like China, but I mean, we also know that China was propped up as a guinea pig state for many years by the Trilateral Commission under Jimmy Carter with Zbigniew Brzezinski years ago as this guinea pig state for technocracy. It's been happening for a very long time. We have the World Economic Forum now. What do you think of the idea of people being forced into that kind of restrictive digital system?
Well, I think that again, people ask why I started my company. I could just point to many, many reasons, but this is one. I think it's inevitable at this point. I think there is too large of a segment of our society that craves a nanny state. They've been in many instances, whether it be the British Empire, they've been since World War II created this idea that they need to. They moved from being subjects to a royal crown to having some sort of constitutional monarchy, and then moving into whatever direction they have now, where half of the people are just they're under the nanny state. 100% of the people, their medicine is provided to them, and they look at it and they say, "This is the standard of life now. This is how it's supposed to be," and it's not. And our government has done everything they can to control resources to keep people from having anything that would make their life better. Why are they going to change now? Why would people even think that? They're going to do everything they can to have you worship at the feet of big government. And if you're not doing that, if you're not worshiping the nanny state, you're going to see what they do. And they've already done it in many, as you very well know, they do in first world nations, and they're going to continue to do to take away our rights. And one of those rights is the right to know what's inside of my body, to know what I'm eating, to know what medicines I'm taking, and to fully understand their effects and what side effects. And they don't want you to have that right. And in the end, it's going to be because whoever they can't control, those whom don't toe the line, well, those people won't have food. Or if they do get food, it'll be the food that shortens their lifespan very quickly.
Yeah, that's usually what we think of when we think of a lot of the food rations they'll give us going forward. FEMA and these other organizations. It's hard not to think of Soylent Green or something. We're getting into that sci-fi type environment these days, where I mean, honestly, the truth is stranger than the fiction that we'd read in these sci-fi books from 80 years ago. 1984 doesn't sound that crazy anymore, and that is something that we've been normalized to, which is very, very unfortunate because, again, regardless of the president, we have an international order that has been created that, of course, we are unfortunately succumbing to in the fact that the West has been demoralized. It's been culturally destroyed, essentially. And it's barely hanging on by just a few threads at the moment. So regardless of the president today, the order of things 5 years out, 10 years out, 15 years out looks pretty bleak if we as individuals don't consider individualism is the basis of freedom in the first place. People go out and actually prepare themselves and get stocked up. Don't sit on your hands. It's about you and the future of your family. And that's why, of course, again, we have that link in the description, whambeef.com. And again, you could use code WAMBEEF, WAMBEEF, to get 20% off on those products. And I highly recommend people stock up on this stuff because in the end, not only are you saving money going forward because you are going to deal with higher inflation down the road, so you're actually saving money on the servings of this meat, but also you allow yourself to not succumb to a digital ID system where you get food rations. It sounds crazy today. It won't sound that crazy later on when it happens. And then what? You're going to be stuck without any food for your family. You're going to be stuck without having options. That is a very irresponsible place to put yourself and your family in. Unfortunately, most will sit on their hands and say, we'll see what happens. That's where things get the worst. So again, we have code WAMBEEF over at whambeef.com, all one word. And of course, Jason, I wanted to go into something with you that, of course, some people that watched a video that I did back, I believe in December, will remember. And I want to be very clear here. I made a video talking about how I had this issue with Prepper Beef and the WHAM Beef website. I wasn't getting paid, all this kind of stuff. And I want to be very clear that it wasn't Jason or his brother that were involved in that. I was tricked. I'm not going to go into all the details of who the person was, but I will say it was not them personally. And I want to clear the air on this because it became a big issue. I know a lot of great people that I know shared the video and helped me get in contact. But I was dealing with different people than Jason himself, and Jason had no idea that this was even happening or that I was dealing with the company at all. So he heard of unfortunately from a friend that all this stuff was happening after I put the video up. So I want to make sure people know that we've settled things.
That's going to sound a little bit like I'm not involved in my own company. So let's clarify real quick. So our company started to grow to a level that was me being on the operations side. My brother handles all of basically he's a CFO, but he handles all the administrative duties within the company. Right. But I'm obviously on the ground, and I handle everything from over our facilities over to including from I do not. When I tell you I go out and see the cows every week, it's not just a thing I say. I go out and go to the ranch and then go. So there was a lot going on. Then, of course, there's a lot of things I'm doing within my community, and there's a lot of things that I do at a national level. And so what we had done was we had worked with the company to what was called affiliate management, pretty much. And I could say they just stopped paying our affiliates. So they didn't tell us. We didn't know because the affiliates were run through them. It was kind of an exclusive contract, and we didn't have an option about how we were going to present this. Mm-hmm. And we unfortunately found out because I had a friend call me and say, who's up in Nebraska, and say, I saw on this site that this thing had happened. What's going on? And I hope those same people will go out and share this same video. But when we went and saw when I saw what had happened, I immediately contacted every single affiliate and reached out and said, like, we are now aware this is happening. It was a huge loss, a massive amount of money taken from us, and we had to rectify all of this. And I've given you profuse apologies. There is no excuse. I don't want anyone to think that we would make excuses. We're responsible for all of our shipping and everything of that nature. Or at the time, now we're responsible for our affiliates as well. But at the time, it was just that relationship between the affiliates and the company itself. What had an intermediary, and unfortunately, it was a dishonest intermediary. And we won't discuss it because legally they'll find out how things work. But it's unfortunate. I will apologize to you, and to all the people that trust you openly right now that this was a huge mistake. We should have known better. We learned within 10 months, and unfortunately, we learned the hard way. And a lot of people suffered because of that, but I take ownership of that. This is my company. I'm responsible for it in the end, and I hope that we've rectified it with you. And in the end, we want to be able to be people that people can trust, not just a company, not just a brand, but people. And that's who I am. I'm a person with 5 kids. We homeschool. We do everything the right way, and I've done everything the right way. I've stood up for my community. I've served my nation. I have served with integrity, and it's very frustrating to have people muddy your name. And I don't blame those that were the victims, not you, not anybody else who may have shared it. I blame the people who sullied my name and dragged it through the mud. And in the end, like I said, we've rectified it, I believe. And if we haven't, we're going to continue to do everything we can to build that trust with people, and it won't happen again.
Absolutely. And you've been very forthright and you have rectified things. And when you found out, you were desperate to get a hold of me and talk to me and make sure that I knew what exactly was happening. And I really appreciate all that. And of course, we're a media, so we work with affiliates. And of course, I pick the affiliates myself. I look for companies that are giving solutions to the problems we're seeing in the world today. And that was the number one thing. And when I saw this company, I'm like, these guys are doing what I believe to be very important when it comes to the overall solution to the things that are happening in the world today. And they're a real company owned by people that are real family people that actually care about these values. Of course, unfortunately, other people get in when it comes to affiliates sometimes. And I just really appreciate you rectifying it, and your brother as well, and the work that you guys are doing. No hard feelings on my side. I want to make sure that people understand that this is a good company. Of course, sometimes things muddy the water, and it's hard to keep track of every little thing that always happens all the time. But I really appreciate it, and I urge those that had seen my earlier video, and I really appreciate the support pushing back. You can pull back now, because I think it's important that people go to this company and help support them. They've been under attack, by the way. Their website keeps going down. When people go to buy things, they're obviously under attack. They're over the target, and that's one of the things that makes me proud to actually work with them. And despite all those things that had happened previous with other people involved, I'm happy now to say, look, if anyone should be worried, it would be me. And I'm not, because I know that these people are good people and they're doing good work and providing those solutions. So that's another reason why, I urge people to actually go and check that link and go and support this company. And don't go and spend your time at a Costco getting storable foods and stuff like that. Don't get the junk that they're giving you in mass at the major retailers at Home Depot and stuff like that. I urge people to go and actually get real, healthy, natural, all-American meat over at again, our link in the description, whambeef.com. And I really appreciate everything that you guys have done. And what are your what's your long-term vision here as we see the world seem to crumple up, and these, obviously, the necessity for these solutions to be getting out there? What's your long-term outlook?
Well, my medium-term outlook is to move that a discount to a 25%. I think you need a WHAM Beef 25, and I think I can give that to you if you'd like it, just this once, to make sure, pass it on to your viewers, the people who right now, I'm just thinking about it. We need to first sit here and solve a problem. So let's solve a problem. One, our prices aren't going up because we use American beef, and we've been inflation-proof for the last couple of years, and we're really proud of that. But I know that other people are affected by that. So what we can continue to do in the medium term is to provide people access to these products, and then on top of that, maintain our supply chain. So that's what we're going to commit to, is to making sure the products are available. But long term, what do I see happening? I appreciate everything that President Trump is doing. I think that they are working very hard, but I think with the prominence of AI, we're going to see a universal basic income become implemented. We're going to see a mandate with AI for people to move to smart cities. I think you're going to see, I guarantee within 12 months of me saying this, you will hear that there's a groundbreaking on an entirely new city. And that city will be entirely integrated. There will be, and it will be one of three major corporations that will list this. So I would look for either Amazon or Elon Musk, or I would say Google, to turn around and push for an entirely, and I mean genuinely, an independent city. We're talking about 50,000 people that they're going to move in within 5 years. It's going to be entirely AI run. I think that's what you're going to see, is the model that people are going to put forth. You're going to see what kind of pushback people use, what kind of acceptance people have towards certain control measures. And that right there is it. I mean, if you look back 25 years, 30 years, just in my lifetime, you look back 30 years and you were to tell me back in high school, middle school, something like that, what would be, if any of these things were going to happen, I would tell you, even at that time, and I was very awake, that this was awake, not woke, that this was a conspiracy theory. It's a conspiracy theory. And so much of what was a conspiracy theory, fluoride, aluminum in the atmosphere, lots of things, right? That we could sit here, Monsanto, that we can point out and say, hey, those conspiracies turned out to be real. Turns out that they actually are poisoning us. Turns out that they are actually trying to control us. Turns out that they are trying to sit here, rather than raise the standard of living, they're trying to lower it to create some sort of mediocre life that everybody can just trudge through. If you were to ask me all of the things, I would have said it's not true, and it turned out to be true, and it turns out that it's going to get worse. And I hate to say, I mean, we can continue to work hard in this country, but I think it's inevitable at this point. And I think what you can do is right now start to understand how you can ride out the medium ground while we fight out and fight for our liberties and freedoms. But what are you going to do when they quickly try to coerce people, when they take away their food, when they take away their water, when they take away their access to medicine? And are you going to be prepared to be independent? And it might be us
Absolutely.
as a nation that's shut off from the rest of the world because we refuse to comply with the WEF and other things like that. We might kick the UN out of the United States. See, it might see that happen. But in the end, I think it's inevitable that we're going to see these controls measures implemented. And I think we should just work our tails off to be independent families. Do what we do. Start a garden, folks. You don't need a lot of land to start a garden. I mean that. And then turn around and supplement your food. I'd love for you to support our products, but if you can't, get prepared either way you can. But I would go to WHAM Beef and I would sit here and make a plan. Say, what do we need to start to do to look at, 90 days of food until we could sit here and provide? Do you want to survive or do you want to thrive? Because I don't want to get by on the bare minimum. That's how you get sick. That's how you're unable to do work. That's how you're incapable of producing. So you need to be able to get in your normal caloric intake. You need to eat healthy foods that aren't full of preservatives. And we want to provide that solution. It's why we started this company. It's why we stand behind it. It's why we work so hard to grow it. It's so that we can provide as many Americans this product as possible so they could turn around and be prepared to stand alone or to stand with their neighbors, but to stand without the government over them, without the nanny state.
Yeah, the amount of people out there that think that they could just wait for the government to solve the problems of government, the onus is on all of you out there watching this.
Great way to put that.
And we have these issues with the supply chain. The number one way you can control people is via food and money. If you take away people's access to being able to feed their family, and then you say, hey, eat this poison in this ration line, people, unfortunately, no matter how awake you are, you're going to end up in that line because you need to eat. And if you take away people's access to their bank accounts, same thing. People will say, well, how am I going to pay for things? Well, here's some credits. It's the only way. And people will do it. Unfortunately, that's a situation, no matter how awake you are, again, not woke, awake you are, it doesn't matter if you end up in a situation where you're dependent. If you're dependent on grocery stores, if you're dependent on banks, that puts you in danger, in harm's way when it comes to protecting yourself and your family going forward. So I urge everyone, again, to go to that link in the description, whambeef.com. Again, use that code WHAMBEEF, all one word. And of course, be sure that you can have something backed up that you could put away for a rainy day, which could be very soon. We don't know. And we know, though, that in the next decade, to take a risk, it's 10 plus year shelf life. Take a risk in the next decade. I mean, it's crazy. We know that the gauntlet's coming down, regardless of who's in power, and we know that we need to take responsibility over our own lives and get prepared. So, again, I really appreciate you joining us today, Jason. Again, I'd also like to let people know to go follow you on X. What's your X handle again?
At Real Jason Nelson. Very easy to find if you want to watch lots of gardening pictures and my kids homeschooling. That's pretty much what we do on there. So there you go.
All right. So go and check those links in the description. As always, we want to bring you those solutions. We want to make sure that people know, look, this isn't about advertising or doing, ad reads and stuff. This is about actually finding real solutions from people that understand this system, understand where it's going wrong, and understand where we need to come in with these solutions for ourselves and our families going forward. So thank you very much for joining us today. And I hope to talk to you again soon, Jason.
Thank you so much for having me, Josh. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to talking with you again soon.